Well, we're very happy to have the Civic Association Director and our esteemed member of the Executive Committee here, Llwyd Eccelstone, as our guest speaker this morning. Llwyd has been a driving force in Palm Beach County development for over 50 years. He's a visionary leader whose contributions in South Florida growth are really unmatched. A graduate of the Taft School with a business degree from Wayne State University, Llwyd began his construction career in Michigan. In 1965, he came to Florida to complete the development of Lost Tree Village, a 450-acre golfing community on the ocean in northern Palm Beach County. In 1976, Llwyd built both the administrative and golfing headquarters for the Pga of America. For the next 25 years, under his direction and in partnership with Kemper Insurance Company, Pga National was developed. The project was sold in 2007, and Llwyd acquired Hilton Doubletree hotels in Texas, California, and Kansas. And he has developed and built Tower 1515, a 15-story office building in West Palm Beach, and Pga National Office Center, 2-story building in Palm Beach Gardens. He developed and owns major college student housing in West Virginia, Arizona, and Colorado. In addition to being on the executive committee and being a director, Llwyd is chairman of the Town Shore Protection Board. He serves on the Palm Beach County Aviation and Advisory Board for the Florida Council of 100, the World Presidents Organization, and is a past member of YPO, the Urban Land Institute, and the Chief Executive Organization. He served as chairman of the airport committee that developed the main Pba terminal as it exists today. He's a founding board member and life trustee of the Kravis Center. He's the past chair and current member of the Economic Council of Palm Beach County. Llwyd received Northwood University's Outstanding Business Leader Award and was awarded an honorary Doctor of Laws, a degree by Northwood, for his meaningful contributions to society. He's recognized by the Home Builders Contractors Association of Palm Beach County with an Achievement Award and the Elmer Hedrick Award for Excellence in Building Industry. He was the second recipient of the Palm Beach Post's John D. MacArthur Business Leader of the Year Award, and I hope you will tell us about some of your memorable moments with the infamous and famous John D. MacArthur. The Palm Beach County Convention and Visitors Bureau honored him with the Providencia Award for making extraordinary contributions to the vitality of Palm Beach County. In 2014, Llwyd was honored by the Palm Beach Police Foundation with the Palm Tree Award for recognition of outstanding community support. Llwyd and his wife Diana are recipients of the Island Medal of Honor, Ellis Island Medal of Honor, a distinguished award presented to American citizens who amplify the values of American way of life. Llwyd enjoys sailing and racing sailboats. He won the Canada's Cup from the Royal Canadian Yacht Club and St. David's Lighthouse Trophy as the overall winner in the Newport Bermuda race. He's a member of several clubs worldwide, including the Explorers Club and New York Yacht Club. This morning, we've asked Llwyd to speak to us about Palm Beach and the county, and following his remarks, he will answer some and maybe all of your questions. We'll see. But thank you very much. Llwyd, would you take the board, it's yours, and thank you very much. You're a very special guy. We did a lot of things with the Civic Association the last 6 years, and many of those things wouldn't have been possible without his personal involvement, and I really appreciate that.
Good morning. Thank you, Bob. You mentioned some things I don't have in my packet here, or my guiding notes. But it's nice to see you all here this morning earlier and in a rainy day. It's not our usual sunny day here in Florida. We don't speak of these rainy days. Doesn't happen, in case you didn't know that. You're dreaming this. But I was asked to talk, and I don't know how these two microphones work. Am I echoing at all? Huh? Okay. It was good. Anyway, it's great. It's great to be here. I will have questions I have left a hole or two in my talk just so you guys can think about some questions to poke me with or whatever, you know. But anyway, I was asked to talk today about some of my development and life experiences in Palm Beach County. So I thought I'd start with my first life experience, which happened right here in this little town. In the winter of 1944, my family rented a house on the corner of Sea Spray and South Ocean Boulevard. I attended the tiny Palm Beach Public School on the corner of Coconut and Royal Palm Way. And I walked to school every morning with my little brown bag. It was really sort of exciting. And spent many days swimming in the afternoon in the ocean, playing at the Sea Spray Club. The schoolhouse has now been replaced with a larger building, as you can see today, and the Sea Spray Club, unfortunately, is no more, but I have visited the foundations of some of it since I have authority through the Civic, through the my ocean working sand operation to check that out a little bit. But there's no more Sea Spray Club, and it was wonderful for an afternoon of swimming. One thing I remember from that time was that my parents were friends with a couple called Jim and Ginny Campbell from Detroit. I don't know if too many of us remember them. They were older than me and us here, but Jim was commanding officer of Morrison Field, now Palm Beach International Airport. It was an important air base for protecting the southeast coast of Florida from the Germans. Morrison Field was the center of activity and served as the takeoff point for Army Air Corps planes destined for battle lines throughout the world. Jim Campbell took me under his wing, and I spent many days there in my own custom-made Air Force Major's uniform with all the things on them, with him, and I was just 8 years old. Even went through the gas chamber. You know, my mother wasn't happy with that, though. I also remember looking out over the ocean every night, because we were on the ocean and that, and it's such beautiful nights here, even though it's dark out there, before bed. And one night I suddenly saw a huge red ball of fire out there. I learned from an unhappy Jim Campbell the next day that what I saw was a German torpedo striking a oil tanker of the United States right off the beach of Palm Beach. A few days later, Jim explained to me with a smile on his face that they found a German life raft full of Germans that had landed on the beach somewhere up in Jupiter. I assumed that somewhere along the line that little torpedo boat got sunk. So some of the more interesting facts of Palm Beach County related during World War II include that between 1942 and 1944, the Breakers Hotel converted into an Army hospital. Lucky they went back to being a resort, or the other hospitals might have had a problem. But the Jupiter Lighthouse, which is up north, was a secret naval listening station for tracking U-boat radio transmission. And Belgrade was the home to a POW camp holding 250 German POWs. So we were a part of the action. I moved to Florida full-time with my family in the late spring of 1965 to assume the continued development of Lost Tree Village, a 450-acre oceanfront and intercoastal front development in northern Palm Beach County that was started by my dad in 1961. There was not much in the area at the time, except a few bars, fishing camps on the lake, and grass. Lost Tree was struggling to get infrastructure and roads built. And that is why my father asked me to come down here, and move to Florida, is to become a contractor, basically. Dad actually bought the land in the 50s, around the time that John D. MacArthur was buying land that would become Lake Park, Palm Beach Gardens, North Palm Beach, and others. Actually, MacArthur was originally interested in building a headquarters for his Bankers Life and Casualty in West Palm Beach, but could not make a deal. How unusual. He, of course, went on to buy approximately 56 square miles of land in northern Palm Beach County. MacArthur incorporated 44,000 acres of that property on which he founded Palm Beach Gardens. And interestingly, a city that he originally wanted to name Palm Beach City, but that was refused by the state. You guessed it, the name was too similar to the town of Palm Beach. So, hence Palm Beach Gardens. In 1959, it was incorporated as a paper town, meaning that it existed in paper only. There were no residents. In fact, in 1960, the census recorded that city of Palm Beach Gardens officially had a population of 1. Apparently, a squatter who MacArthur had allowed to stay on the property so it could be recorded as a real city. Things were wild back then. At that time, Pbca Boulevard was a 2-lane road called Monet Road, which was a straight-line road from the Turnpike to US Highway 1. When the Professional Golfers Association of America came to an agreement with John D. to move its headquarters to his property, which is now called Bell and Isles, MacArthur requested the state legislature in 1965 to rename the road Pbca Boulevard after the professional golfers. And if you can imagine, there still was no traffic signal at US Highway 1 and Pbca, still basic. Monet Road was actually a gravel road when a fellow named Walt Disney came to town around 1963. He had an idea for a theme park, and MacArthur offered him 5,000 acres. Well, of course, it wasn't enough for Disney, so Walt Disney World ended up in Orlando, as we know, and opened in 1971. There are a few interesting stories of MacArthur and Disney and their encounters, but I'll leave that till later. Also at that time, I-95 actually did not extend to Pbca Boulevard. It was John D. MacArthur in 1969, through his Bankers Life and Casualty, that bought the bonds to pay for the extension of I-95 from 45th Street to Pbca Boulevard. And that was very important to us guys living up in the North End. Aside from the bars and fishing camps, lack of traffic signals, what my family and I experienced when we first arrived in Lost Tree Village was not necessarily good, to say the least. My wife wasn't happy about moving in the first place. And then when we arrived, we learned that the spec house that she had picked out to live in had been sold the day before. There was no security up there, 0. Only the North Palm Beach Police Department, which was probably 2 people, which was small and didn't officially serve Lost Tree because we were in the county and Palm Beach, North Palm Beach was a city. The water plant my father built had a problem, so that the water had, shall we say, a unique taste. The grocery store was miles away, and there's a small K through 6 private school up there with no plans for expansion. not a great start. My wife was threatening to go back to Detroit. Her mother lived too close to us there, so I had to move fast. The first thing I did was go to the Palm Beach Sheriff's Department and told them there was no security up there. We need help. And I was prepared to be deputized. So instead of assigning us a deputy and providing police protection as I expected, they deputized me, gave me a badge and permission to carry a gun, and basically said, good luck. So I still have the badge today. I don't know where the gun is, you know. It's around someplace. I then found an expert on potable water, and we finally got decent drinking water in 3 weeks. My dad and I bought the property on the corner of Pbca Boulevard and US Highway 1 from John D. MacArthur and built Oak Brook Square. So we eventually had a public grocery store next door. In fact, that's how we ended up with the traffic signal at Pbca and US 1. We had to have traffic signal there before they would approve our center. And the problem was, no one thought they owned those corners. I mean owned, they're like in the city, it could have been North Palm Beach. We thought it was North Palm Beach, no. Could have been Palm Beach County, that they didn't say so. And it was actually Palm Beach Gardens that had jurisdiction over those 3 corners. And so finally, they agreed to, that it was theirs, and then of course they had to pay for the signals. So we got our traffic signals and we got our public store. Also in 1968, I made an agreement with Marshall Benjamin to expand the North Palm Beach Private School. We raised the money, built all the buildings for a new school, and renamed it the Benjamin School. And it's still going strong today. All my children, and now most of my grandchildren, have or will graduate from that school. It's a wonderful school. Over the next 5 years, I built almost all the houses in Lost Tree, and at that time, things were kinds of casual. In fact, to give you an idea how casual it was, when we went to close on Jack Nicholas's house, it was a little complicated, but he was not happy with the 1-inch thick of paper. He didn't want to read it. His lawyers weren't there, so it was Jack and I. So we sat down and made a list on a yellow sheet of paper of what he liked, what he thought it was, what I thought it was, and by that afternoon, we came to a settlement, and I got paid a little money, and he got his house. It's not the house today, though, but it's the first house. By 1969, we had sold out the majority of Lost Tree, and I was interested in developing more projects. I learned of a parcel that was available on Royal Palm Way in the town of Palm Beach. I had built and rehabbed buildings in downtown Detroit, so I thought it was a natural fit to get back into the development business a little bit. I decided to start with a 6-story office building on the site, partly because that's all they allowed me to build at that time. It was named and is still currently named Plaza Center. And there are 2 buildings there right now, because I thought it sounded good and would attract tenants. But looking back, the craziest thing about that building, or the building attached to its garage, was that the parking garage was designed incorrectly by the architect. He got an old set of ideas of how big the car openings needed to be. It was too narrow for cars to get in. When they rounded the corners, the columns took the side mirrors and scraped the side of each car. So I had a problem. And it was 6 stories too. We had to cut the columns down inward to make it wide enough for cars to pass through. And then because the inspectors required us to put the full weight of 300 cars in the garage for a test period of 24 hours. Obviously, we could not get 300 cars in, and we had trouble enough just as 1 or 2. So I had my guys fill 4 large collapsible pools with about 128 gallons of water. I took a lot of water that day, young lady. Sorry about that. And then we put it on the top floor, the garage. Test was for 24 hours, and the time was up at 5 a.m. in the morning. And I told some people out, the guys are handling that for me, to be there and collapse those pools at the moment the clock struck 5. And they did. Boom. And unfortunately, the water came crashing down on the houses on Phipps Plaza. They weren't happy. They were sleeping and thought they were under attack. Needless to say, this was not a good start for my building career in Palm Beach. By 1971, I could see a beautiful vacant piece of land on the Intercoastal Waterway. We're back up in the north end of the county now. When I approached the owner, he said he'd planned to build a marina there and housing, but had not decided on what kind of housing. As it turned out, the owner was a lawyer from Fort Lauderdale, and he really just wanted to sell the property. So I just really wanted to buy it. I made the deal with him, and it became Old Port Cove, and I partnered with TD Bank to build the project. We decided on high-rise condos to get the best views of the ocean and the Intercoastal Waterway, and also the most density on the site. There was a lot of empty land available along US Highway 1 at the time, and it did not look anything like it does today, but what I bought was the most beautiful property and saw great potential. It was a great partnership. I sold out around 1976 and went probably west a little bit. But anyway, it was very helpful to me to be in that Old Port Cove. Because around that time I was developing it, I was also staking out real estate for office buildings on Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard. And that was appealing to me. It was close to I-95, the mall, the old mall, was completed and really nice. It's close to downtown. West Palm Beach Auditorium was finished, and everything was completed. Otherwise, there was a lot of empty land in Palm Beach Lakes, and I saw it as a great opportunity. In 1971, I bought most of the property and built what is still today the Forum 3 buildings. Then in '86, I built what was then the Republic Bank building. It's changed its names a couple times. And currently, my current is a Florida Community Bank office tower with a red Alexander Lieberman sculpture in front of it. It's about 25 feet high. You can't miss it. The building's a little higher than that. Today, Palm Beach Lakes is booming, and the mall has been redesigned into a great new outlet mall, and I think it works well with the location. It's still a great street for business. There's just no more vacant property. So you have what you got there. The story of how I started PJ National began at Old Port Cove. Interestingly enough, because I sold a condo in 1974 to a guy named Mark Cox. Mark was executive director of the PGA of America. Mark had a problem. As it turns out, the PGA had just evicted the PGA from, John D. MacArthur had evicted the PGA from the PGA National Golf Club, and they were looking for a new home, and that included at least 3 championship courses. I knew I needed at least 1,600 acres for that kind of project, and there were only 2 people who owned parcels of land that fit that description, Henry Rolfs and John D. MacArthur. Even though I had more relationship with MacArthur, I decided to approach Rolfs first because MacArthur had just evicted the PGA, and I did not think he would make a deal with their involvement. I had a verbal agreement with Rolfs on the Okeechobee Boulevard west of the Turnpike, but when I got the final agreement, the price was higher than we had discussed. So I called MacArthur, and he agreed to meet with me for breakfast. I sat down with him at the Colonnades Hotel, which is, again, no more, coffee shop, where he famously conducted all his business. He first offered to sell me what is now Admiral's Cove. I thought it was a little too small, and he was not ready to sell it immediately. I'd been out driving around and really wanted the piece of property that I ended up buying. He agreed he would sell it to me, but he did not trust himself with numbers then, so he told me. And he had me sit down with a lawyer, Ted Clymer, to work out the deal. MacArthur and I shook hands within an hour, and within 2 months, I had a signed agreement to buy 2,000 acres based on that initial handshake at the coffee shop. It's funny, when you think about it, if Rolfs had been like MacArthur and honored the deal, PJ National might have been on Okeechobee Road. However, right now it's on PJ National, just west of the Turnpike on PJ Boulevard. And it's turned out to be a great location. What was really crazy, when I look back now, was expecting the world's best golfers to tee off west of the Florida Turnpike and expecting anyone to live there that was that far west was inconceivable. In 1977, there wasn't a single major development west of the Turnpike in central or northern Palm Beach County. In those days, everything on the other side of the Turnpike was a dream. For all intents and purposes, PJ Boulevard ended at JDM Country Club, and the land that I was buying on was literally in the middle of nowhere, and people were not afraid to tell me that I was frankly an idiot. It was difficult to get the financing for starters, but there I was, 40 years old, and making a deal with Mr. Mack and a signed agreement with the PGA, and I knew that if I did not get the land, build the courses, they were going to go someplace else. The next big hurdle was permitting and dealing with the various entities. I took about 1.5 years. We got all the permits from 7 different state and federal agencies. Once we got started on the infrastructure, we removed over 300 alligators, hundreds of snakes, and I trucked in over 1 million yards of fill. I was ready to go then. I immediately started the golf courses, knowing that it would draw people to the project. I started the first one in '79, and each course took about 1 year to build, and they were completed around 1981. But I also built and opened the golf club in early 1981. At the same time, around 1980, I started parceling out some land and building some of the first houses. I knew we had a hit when I was paying the mortgage down faster than I was drawing on it, building the roads and sewers and all that. Nearly 300 lots were sold before the roads were even built. People bought them sight unseen. Just a parcel map. I wanted a hotel to bring people out west, which I opened, but I opened that in 1981 too, and that was a big year. My goal was to create a community based on health, leisure living, extra wide sidewalks for walking, biking, running, and tennis and golf. Then I added one of the first spas. These days, golf course communities are synonymous with upscale Palm Beach County living, but they were rare in early 1980s. To be able to buy a condo for $139,000 overlooking the golf course, people thought was amazing. I still made a little money. I was so lucky through all of it. Golf writers' bylines begin to read PJ National, Palm Beach Gardens, as the Ryder Cup, the PJ National Championship, and the Seniors Championship were being held on these 3 courses. It gave it even more, a little bit of a cachet, and drove people and companies to Palm Beach County for the image and reality of an affluent lifestyle of golf. Today, within PGA National, there are 5 golf courses, a golf academy, and well-regarded restaurants. It has about 5,000 homes. It's like a small city with more than 10,000 residents, which is more than the population of Palm Beach Gardens the day I bought it. Over the years, a lot of people have asked me, what John D. MacArthur was like to do business with. Having heard all the stories of his eccentric and frugal nature. But I always say, and I'll say it again today, when you deal with Mr. Mac, his word was good and he was brilliant. The only problem I ever had with him when I bought the land, the Palm Beach Gardens International Airport was on that property. And there was only one plane that used that airport, and that was MacArthur's. So the first problem was he had a crazy Cuban pilot who was a former general of Cuba, and he carried a gun. Yeah, you need guns up in the north part way back then, you know. When the surveyors found out that he was pulling up their survey stakes, they started carrying guns too. And I thought we were headed for a full-scale battle up there on the PJ property. Someone got to the general. I don't know who. I owe him a big favor. Also, MacArthur included the agreement that I had to pay for the airplane hangar, his plane to hang his airplane at the hangar, I guess, at Pbca, to house his plane when we moved it off the site. We actually had to close the airport with federal governmental approval because it was an officially recognized international airport. So, another interesting story about MacArthur is how he was accused of destroying the environment. He loved Florida and its natural beauty. For a while, he was known as Banyan Mac because in 1961, he moved the biggest tree ever in Florida, a 60-foot, 75-ton tree at a cost of $30,000 with over 1,000 man-hours down to another place in Palm Beach Gardens, and he rode the tree the whole way from where they picked it up and put it down. He was a showman, actually. He also knew how long of a drive. He also took daily long drives around his property. And in the afternoon when he was hot, he'd strip down to his boxers and jump in the lake. Apparently one day, he did that with Walt Disney. Followed suit, or no suit, depending on how you look at it. When I reflect on things that I think really made a difference in changing the face of Palm Beach County, immediately come to mind one of developing single-member districts for county commissioner elections, which prevented voting blocks from having too much control for the commission. The next one is the expansion and the continued improvement of Palm Beach International Airport. The third is another one and is related to a great congressman, Tom Lewis. Tom championed the completion and opening of what we call the missing link, the last 29.7 miles of unfinished stretch of Interstate 95 from Maine to Miami. It was the piece between Palm Beach Gardens and Fort Pierce that made all this work, connecting Jupiter and beyond and making Palm Beach County truly whole. It has been a wonderful career, and I've developed a lot of property. But my deal with MacArthur and building PGA was absolutely a fantasy. It was my favorite. And what most people find interesting is that I don't play golf. I have a book, which you all have probably seen in my office, someone gave me, And inside, all the pages are blank. The title of the book is All I Know About Golf by Llwyd Eccelstone. That about sums us up, you know. I'm just really a lucky guy. So, and thank you all for coming here today. It was a great decision on my part coming to Palm Beach County, thanks to my father, and Sally not going back home. And the town here, living in Palm Beach, is just another fantasy. And I actually live one house from the house we rented when we were here in 1944. Today, I live one house, there's one house between us on that, still on the ocean, which is wonderful. So thanks for sharing. Thank you for laughing a little bit. And I had a great time. Hope you did.